1, 2, you know what to do.
I'm a Harlan man. I went down in the mine when I was barely grown. It was easy, man. 'Cause I didn't know like no now. Well, I'm a
Welcome back, everybody. This is The Honest Brew. Ben Heisler, Shane Kale. Glad to have you along with us. You can also go to thehonestbrew.com. You can hear our conversation from last week with Bulls forward and fan favorite Brian Scalabrine. You can also follow us at The Honest Brew on Twitter. But very excited to get to our first guest. He is the longtime CBS and TNT broadcaster. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin Harlan. It is Kevin Harlan. Kevin, it's Ben and Shayn. Great to have you on. How are you?
Thank you, guys. Always want to talk some college basketball, especially this time of the year, huh?
A lot going on. And Shane and I were talking beforehand about how you're one of the world's busiest broadcasters and voices. So I guess I have to ask you, is there a time where you're not working? Maybe is it during the summer? Do you get a chance to rest that Major League voice of yours?
Oh, thanks. We take some time off in the end of May. We work just a certain amount of games for the playoffs for TNT and the NBA. And then I've got it in my contract that I can stop because my preseason football starts in August doing Green Bay Packer games on television. So that means I'm starting about mid-July getting ready for football. So if I continued on in the playoffs, I could go through June, have about 2 weeks off, then start up again in mid-July. So the folks at Turner have been nice enough to let me have some time away. So I stop about the last week in May, and then I'll work until, like I said, about the first week in August.
And then you get to go to hang out when you do the Packers games. You get to hang out with our guy Wayne Larrivee up there. He's also a lot of fun. Another big voice.
Wayne is. I was an intern for Wayne, and Wayne actually hired me in Kansas City with KCMO Radio when I was still in college. And I got to produce, so when he was broadcasting the Kansas City Chiefs, was producing the pregame, halftime, and postgame for the Chiefs radio network, and then I eventually evolved into taking the job that he had when he went to do the Chicago Bears. So I've followed Wayne, it seems like my entire career, and now we're, I guess, sort of teammates doing the Packers for a limited time in the summer that I am, and enjoy him immensely, and have a ton of respect for him. He is, you're right, he is one of the premier voices in sports broadcasting today.
Well, Kevin and Shane here, and if I had to equate you with any broadcaster as far as a similar style, it would be Wayne as far as the catchphrases and keeping in intensity for a full 4 quarters of football or basketball, whatever it be. Did you try to learn anything from his style when you were interning for him and look up to him like that?
Well, Shane, I probably took some things from him. I think I've taken a lot of things from a lot of guys. Inadvertently, people have said that I sound like Marv Albert. I never heard Marv Albert until I was like in my mid-20s. And so I don't think I've changed very much, and for whatever reason, our styles, I guess, have kind of melted together, and people say that, Breen and Eagle and myself and some of these guys in their mid-40s to 50 kind of have that same, and I guess Wayne Larrivee's in that category too, certainly, kind of have that same style, maybe not exactly, but in that same body of work, and so I don't know if it's just this particular generation of broadcaster or not. I'm not certain. It's a compliment certainly to be lumped with guys like that, and but Wayne. I don't think I ever tried purposely to copy him, and I have my heroes, to be quite honest, when I was growing up were like Don Criqui when he was at NBC and
Sure.
his days early before NBC when he was at CBS, John Facenda, the late voice of NFL films, Pat Summerall, Keith Jackson, and those voices don't sound anything like I do. So I wish I sounded more like them actually than I do.
You gotta have your own style.
But anyway, it is what it is, and and you're given a certain sound, and that's the sound that I have. So I guess I'm stuck with it.
Well,
we love your sound here at the Honest Brew, Kevin.
That's true, Kevin.
Thank you.
And final thought on Wayne before we actually do and move on from college basketball. Wayne's been a friend of the show, and both Shane and I grew up in the early 1990s when he was the voice of the Bulls, and I got a chance to tell him this story of when I was in second grade. I had drained a 3-point shot, and I just came back storming from the court, and I just go, ring it up! And I got teed up. and Wayne got a kick out of that. Have you, as someone who's sort of become a voice of a new generation for your calls for football and for basketball, have you had experiences like that with fans saying, I heard you call this LeBron James dunk and your call got stuck in my head? Have you had those experiences with fans that have sort of found this new way to attach to you and to your calls and to your voice since you've done so many games for many years now?
Well, I have. I always say, "Oh, you'll find a better thing to say after hitting a big shot than that," or whatever. I always flattered, of course. The stuff that I use. Some things I'll use a little bit on a more regular basis, but to be quite honest, I guess I just turned 50, and I guess I'm more inclined now to kind of drift perhaps in a different direction. Not that I would ever write anything down, because I never have. All the stuff that's come out has just kind of come out naturally during games, and then you kind of get stuck on phrases for whatever reason. But none of it was purposefully written down and used in conjunction with the play or whatever. So I've never really gone down that road. And I'm not necessarily sure if that is good or not. I mean, it's fun, and some people like it, some people don't. I guess maybe the older you get, and the longer you are in the business, maybe you say, let's, maybe try to be new or fresher or I don't know. I'm not really certain how all that kind of fits into where I am right now, but it is fun that some of the kids have latched onto that, and I'm always flattered, but I don't purposely write or say or think that I'm going to say any of that stuff going in, like the no regard for human lifeline. That that just kind of came up. I've only used it actually 3 times. I used it once when Kevin Garnett was a young player in Minnesota, once when Kobe was having a terrific game at Madison Square Garden against the Knicks, and then with LeBron in the playoffs against the reigning defensive player of the NBA, Kevin Garnett, in Cleveland when LeBron was still a Cavalier. So those, and it just came out. And sometimes you say something, goes, oh my God, what did I just say? And you just go, oh. So anyway, some of it works, some of it doesn't, and I guess if people just take it kind of in the right, in the right frame of mind, I guess it's all right. But it wasn't planned. None of it has been planned, actually.
Hey, Kevin, I imagine that you would probably use that catchphrase if you ever went out to dinner with Ben and saw him eat a hamburger.
Thanks, bud.
Well, if I ever get invited with you, Shane, or Ben, then I maybe I will bring that out, yes.
Hey, I'm actually I'm going to Las Vegas tonight, and I'm going to be in Phoenix, I think, Thursday. So hopefully I'll be at the games if I can grab a ticket, and maybe I'll take you out to dinner or something like that.
Well, please come on by and say hello. Everybody else comes by and bumps into us and stuff as we're down there, so I hope they'll take the time to come over and say hello.
Yeah, definitely. If I get the opportunity, I will. But looking ahead to the games starting on Thursday and Friday, I wanted to ask you specifically about the IU Kentucky game, because both Ben and I don't know if you know this, but we both graduated from there in the past couple of years, and this has got to be one of the biggest storylines going in, with Kentucky being the top seed and IU being the first team to dethrone Kentucky this season at Assembly Hall. I wanted to get your take on that game.
Well, you take it you're Hoosiers and not Wildcats. Am I correct?
Very true.
Okay. Well, first of all, the first meeting between the two, albeit early in the college calendar, was one of the great games this season in all of college basketball. I mean, it would have to rank, whether you're a fan of the teams or not, just a college fan, it'd have to be one of the top, 5, certainly top 10 games played over the, in the entire body of work of college basketball. It's just terrific. Mm-hmm. And so there's that built-in animosity or revenge factor, whatever you want to call it, certainly for Kentucky. Both teams, I think, are different than they were at that time. Some of the constants, though, have always, kind of headlined these teams. Zeller certainly at Indiana, Davis and the other freshmen at Kentucky. And then, of course, on the mantle of every program is the head coach, and I can't think of two better head coaches than Tom Crean and John Calipari. Crean, really took a program, and decrepit or tattered is not the right word because it would never go to that depth, but it was in desperate need of a revamping. And he went in there, and they struggled early on, certainly, but he had to get, his culture established. So while I love John and have known John since the mid-'80s, when we were both at Kansas and involved in those Jayhawk, he as a coach and me as a broadcaster. Tom Crean, I think had, more in front of him when he took over that job than John did when he took over Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Billy Gillespie kind of left some things there for him, and they were a decent program. But when Crean took over at Indiana, it was in need of some retooling, and that's what he's done. So I really respect Tom a great deal and how he's built up and how he's recruited, and there may not be a more exciting place in the entire Big Ten than Bloomington, Indiana, on a game night. That's a great place to be. So now they meet, possibly, and that's going to make I think for a lot of fireworks. That's going to be a terrific. A terrific showdown, and we'll have to see how things kind of develop from there. But it is certainly one that people have been kind of thinking about. People love rematches, and certainly that, like I said before, being one of the great games this year in college basketball would serve that purpose.
We're visiting with Kevin Harlan from CBS and TNT, and now I guess I have to say also TBS and True TV here on The Honest Brew. Ben Heisler and Shayn Cale here. It's a good transition when you talk about Indiana because they were one of the teams that was able to have success against Michigan State in that final game in March, where they really had a terrific transition game. And I'm looking at this matchup here, Kevin, between Louisville and Michigan State. And Louisville's a team that likes to get out and transition. They have quick guard play. They can get it inside and outside. In Michigan State, they like to play that half-court offense and bring it into Draymond Green inside. If you have to break down sort of where these two coaches want to go, and two great coaches in Pitino and Izzo going up against one another, where do you see the keys for this game for each side?
Well, I think both will stress defense, certainly. I think that's the one thing that they've got in common. They both have got great programs. They've got a litany of honors, each of them. I mean, there's, to me, the Phoenix region has got maybe the most, I don't know, I guess maybe because I'm going there I feel this way. I think they've got the most compelling matchups. And you can't find bigger name head coaches. Donovan won 2 consecutive national championships. He's been to, a handful of Final Fours. Played as a player, as an assistant coach with Pitino at Kentucky. I mean, go on and on and on about what he means at Florida. And Marquette, that has been, I think, one of the favorites of so many people picking brackets to make the Final Four. And then that takes us to Louisville, which plays in a rugged conference. And to me, the Pitino teams are always built to get better month by month, week by week, game by game. And that's how he never has, at least I guess in recent history, been one to come out of the chute and just amaze you with what they're doing in December and January. But what they do is they spend November, December, January, February becoming, working toward practicing to be what they're going to be this time of year. So what you see, and Izzo, I think, is a lot like that too. They were a highly ranked team coming into this season, but have had to kind of find their way and have basically been that team in the shadow of Ohio State for kind of a good part of the Big Ten season, and then they kind of established themselves, and bang, there they were, and they continue to be one of the most respected programs in college basketball with Draymond Green, and they had some defections too. They had Chris Allen left. I mean, they had some kids that have kind of coming on. Corey Lucius from Milwaukee, who's gone. He was I think a McDonald's kid, or certainly a parade All-America. So he's had some kids leave, but I think he just demands a certain kind of character. And so we've got coaches with different components that make them successful, which leads, regardless if one is a deep seed or a high seed. What I like is we've got familiar names at the Sweet 16 stage, and I think that's what I look for. And we've got this Jay Crowder with Marquette, who's conference player of the year, multifaceted player, former JC kid who's come in and thrived under Buzz Williams in Milwaukee. We talked about Donovan, what he's kind of put together, and how he continues to rebuild, and he's had a lot of kids defect and go to either overseas basketball, as Calatius did a couple years ago, or they've got kids that he's brought along now. So. In all four corners with these four teams, great compelling stories, great individual players. I will tell you, though, that this Draymond Green, to me, I think he's what stands out in college basketball. Senior,
sure.
Great leader, terrific character. Just one thing after another that you can just pin on this kid is one of the best in college basketball.
And guys like that just seem so rare nowadays. As the years go by and guys enter the draft earlier, Draymond Green just seems to stand out a lot right now, and I'm glad that you mentioned him right there.
Yeah, Shane, he does. He's a terrific player. He's really been kind of circled for Izzo since he came in as a freshman. A very mature kid, got along with the upperclassmen. He was the voice late in his freshman year and in his sophomore season. This is the guy people were talking about. That when they made the second weekend of the tournament as a sophomore, he was the kind of kid that you looked at and said, this is he's the real deal. And then while his game and his body might mean a tweener and hard to kind of dissect and designate for the next level. As a college player, he's everything you want. For the one little story that stands out this past season about him is the team had been pushed pretty hard by Izzo, and they had another full day of practice heading into a game on Sunday, and Green had to kind of step aside and knock down the hotel room of Coach Izzo when they're on the road and they're going to have a full practice, and he said, "You know what, Coach? Let's just go through a walkthrough. Let's take it easy. I'll have the guys ready to play on Sunday." And Tom said, "All right, I trust your feel for the team." And sure enough, they just went through a walkthrough. It was a surprise. The team that didn't have a hard 2-hour vigorous practice, they went out then the day after, game day, and they had a terrific killer performance. And that's the kind of guy you want on your team, that leadership. I mean, I think fellow players will crawl for leadership. And in Michigan State, they got that in Draymond Green.
Kevin, it's great to hear such a cool story about Draymond Green like that from you. It's pretty. There's no wonder why you're at the top of your game as far as broadcasting and having that kind of detail to give to fans while they're at the game. Looking at Thursday, it looks like you're going to be teamed up with Reggie Miller and Len Elmore in Thursday in Phoenix. That's correct?
Yeah, and I've got my hands full, guys, with both of them. They're both rascals.
Yeah,
they're both opinionated guys, which is what you want.
Yeah, and Reggie being especially opinionated during that UNC Asheville-Syracuse game, he was pretty adamant about the calls in the last few minutes of that game. I wanted to hear what you thought about him talking about the supposed no out of bounds play and the free throw lane violation, because Reggie was going crazy.
Well, the lane violation was the correct call, but it wasn't really dissected until about a half hour after the game when John Adams came on our air and had to go through the rules, and the studio guys still didn't believe it. They just could not. The confusion came. One official pointed at a guy coming from the wing who had illegally crossed that imaginary line, free throw line extended both ways, and that would be considered a violation. Another official had pointed to a guy who had swung in with his right foot on the left side of the lane as you're facing the basket, and his right foot was in the lane. Now, the contention was, from a lot of the people that have covered it and then subsequently written about it, is that in the first half that call wouldn't have been made, and there needs to be some consistency. Yet it was called late in the game like that. And so that was one train of thought. The other one was a confusion because the rule in the NBA is different when it leaves your fingertips as opposed to in college basketball when it hits the rim. So there are different interpretations here, and that's one of the problems when you bring NBA broadcasters into the mix. And the funny thing, not funny, but the unfortunate thing was the very next night after this had become such a big deal because of our 116 matchup, Asheville and Syracuse. Clark Kellogg, who has come out and, admitted he made the mistake, said it twice. There was a lane violation. He said, when that ball leaves the fingertips, that guy can fly in there. Well, that's not the case in the college game. Then last night I'm watching one of the games, and I forget where it was now, what side it was, but the ball leaves the kid's fingertips. These guys are piling into the lane like it's a free-for-all, and so I don't know. I guess, listen, they begin with 1,000 college officials. They pare them down to begin the tournament with 98. And they continue to whittle and chisel that number down until you get to your final 3 guys for the championship game in New Orleans, which is coming up, next weekend, and in 2 weekends. So, it's not that the college rules are different from the Pac-12 to the Big East, but for whatever reason, we've got the mixture of crews now. And we've got maybe a Big East ref working with a guy that works predominantly in the Southeast, and a Southeastern guy working with a guy who predominantly works in the northern part of the country. And so, I guess there might be some trip-ups here and there. So it's not a perfect system, and John Adams will acknowledge that. But there were some very, very interesting calls. There's no doubt in that Asheville game.
And what a better name for a guy to lay down the law than John Adams.
That's exactly right.
Kevin Harlan joining.
I like that. I wish I would have thought of that one. I might have to borrow that this weekend if we have a big discrepancy in Phoenix, if you don't mind. Okay.
As long as you credit the honest brew, that's fine with us.
Oh yeah, no, I attribute everything I get. Now I'll make sure that I fire your guy's name out there in the name of the show.
Oh, that'd be great, Kevin.
Kevin Harlan joining us for another minute here on the Honest Brew. I'm breaking down the remainder of these matchups. Before we let you go, if you look at UK Indiana, at number 3 Baylor Xavier, Marquette Florida, the list goes on and on. Do you see any potential team on massive upset alert heading into? I guess it's now the 4th round.
Well, I would think Michigan State probably is a little bit on guard. Kentucky, to me, just seems to have so many resources. But then again, a young team, pressure-packed situation, you get that Elite Eight if they would, win that Sweet 16 game. You just don't know. But they're the number 1 team right now that everyone's looking at. North Carolina just lost a very important player who had wrist surgery and hand surgery, and so we're not sure exactly where Marshall's going to be now in his status.
He's going to be at the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. He could be there in some maternity gauze of some sort. The point is that we don't really know right now what his health is going to be. But certainly there are a lot of number 1 picks on that North Carolina team. Doug Collins, who I worked with for 7 years as a partner at TNT and NBA games, told me once that when he's looking at matchups, especially when you get to the Sweet 16, start counting the NBA draft picks on the teams. Mm-hmm. Start figuring out who's going to play at the next level. Not in the Adriatic League, but in the NBA, and find out who the pros are. And that might be a pretty good compass in trying to figure out who's going to win. Well, if that's the case, I guess Kentucky should buzzsaw through everybody then and just win right off the bat. But see, it's a little different. They got a young team. You don't know how the pressure's going to stack up. How will Draymond Green lead, a Michigan team that's got some experience, him and some others on that ball club, but they've got a very young guard who they're kind of bringing in now, and that's probably going to be something to kind of keep an eye on. Steve at Louisville. I mean, there are certain players on all these teams that are kind of the barometers of how that team is playing, because usually if that kid is playing well, if your best players are playing well, you got to like the chances of the team. For Indiana, that Zeller kid, he's had a terrific freshman season. There may not be a better, Anthony Davis is certainly a guy that, and Zeller, 2 of the guys you want to put right up there as the best freshman in college basketball. And I'd like to see him have a nice performance and keep his cool, and I think he will. So let's start gauging how these great players play. Let's start taking a look at maybe how many future pros we got on some of these rosters, and that may give us an indication of how these teams are going to do. But I really think one more number 1 is going to fall. I really feel that way.
Kevin, you've been so gracious with your time. Thank you again for joining us. Before we let you go, real quick, probably one of our more important questions that we forgot to ask you, which is A little bit of what would you rather? Would you rather go clothes shopping with Craig Sager and have him pick out your wardrobe for the next game, or would you rather get dunked on by Cheryl Miller during halftime of a TNT game?
Oh God! All right, bring Sags to my front doorstep, baby. I'm going with him and going to buy some threads.
Can you afford it?
Plus, have you ever the whole missed aspect of his outfit are the shoes. These reptilians. Yeah. He only wears reptilians. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, he's got crocodile, and he's got blah, blah. He's got every kind of hard, he probably has porpoise that he wears. This guy is unbelievable with his shoe wear. And the funny thing is, he's only about a size 11 foot. If you actually measured the shoe, it's like it's like a clown foot. I mean, it's like 18 inches long. I said, Sags, what's the deal with the feet, man? You can ski with those bad boys. And he's such a funny guy. But, the problem is when Sags has, got all those clothes on, sometimes you forget that the message he sends out is a pretty good one. He's a terrific reporter, dogged. He is dogged towards stories. And every time we've got him on our crew, I always feel we're a better crew with him on it. I like him as a friend, like him as a reporter. And you know what? I love his fashion sense. The guy can pick out clothes with the best of them.
He's Kevin Harlan from CBS and TNT. Follow his games. He'll be broadcasting the games at Phoenix with Reggie Miller and Len Elmore. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin Harlan. Kevin, it's been a pleasure. We've loved having you on, and hopefully we'll bring you back again soon and talk a little NBA, possibly even some NFL. Thank you again for your time today.
You got it, Ben. You got it, Shane. Thank you, guys. Great to be on. And I guess considering I'm out with a couple of Hoosiers, go Indiana.
Thank
you,
we
love it, Kevin.
Thanks so much.
Take care, guys.
Kevin Harlan, one of the major voices from CBS, TNT, TBS, True TV, Dial Global, Westwood One I believe it was just formerly Westwood One, but Kevin's the best, and we appreciate him joining us today. That's going to do it. Shane and I will be back next week. He is going to Vegas. Try not to have a severe hangover. We will talk to you next week. Thanks again, everybody.
Dream I could buy my way to heaven. When I awoke, I spent that on a necklace. I told God I'll be back in a second. Man, it's so hard not to act reckless. To whom much is given, much is tested. Get arrested, guess until he get the message. I feel the pressure under more scrutiny. And what I do, act more stupidly.